Morning, everyone. We're just giving folks a couple more minutes to join, and then we will get started. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Everyday is Earth Day webinar series hosted by Emerald Built Environments. We've got a wonderful conversation set up for today, and we're excited to get started. In our industry, we frequently hear the term PropTech mentioned, so we're thrilled today to dig into property technology and learn more about the intersection of real estate, technology and software, and sustainability. My name is Michael Fodor, and I'm a project manager here at Emerald. I primarily lead multifamily certification and sustainability consulting projects, but today I'll be acting as your webinar host. A few housekeeping items to start. Please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A feature during the presentation. We will make sure to save some time to get to them at the end. We are recording this webinar and we will make it available to registered participants as well. So today our host is founder and managing member of Emerald Built Environments, Laura Steinbrink. Laura has an unparalleled understanding and passion for sustainability and how we can all make a difference in the design, construction, and operations of all building types, including how to leverage technology for sustainable performance. Our special guest today is Jeff Hendler, CEO of Logical Buildings. He is a graduate of the Wharton School of Business, is an innovation member of the Smart Cities Council, board member of the Green Button Alliance, and board member of NYC 2030. He has extensive experience in the sector, and we're excited to welcome him to the Everyday is Earth Day series. With that, I will turn it over to Laura.
Thank you so much, Michael, and I'm really glad to be here today with Jeff. I met Jeff recently at a conference and was immediately enamored by his platform and the work of his business, which I might reveal why in a minute or two. Before we get into that, I just wanted to give an overview about Emerald. So we're a sustainability consulting firm, and we work primarily with building owners, developers, and their architects, engineers, contractors, and property management teams in order to set and achieve sustainability goals. We are brought in a lot to help achieve a building certification such as LEED or WELL, and we also help create roadmaps and carbon reports and other elements to support the ongoing efforts to improve sustainable performance of our buildings. And one of the things that's really important to us in all of our engagements is, the fact that we follow this very intentional 4-step process of listening and strategizing, helping our clients create plans and help them evaluate what's the right answer to their solution, or the right solution to their questions that they have, to help them implement that and then test and measure. And this conversation of PropTech gets really at those top 3 and 4. It's all elements of that how much property technology can help organizations and buildings perform better. And so we're really looking forward to dig into that piece with Jeff. And if those of you who follow Emerald may realize that we are about an every week blog distributor, and we spend a lot of time and with intention of trying to think about what are the topics that people need to understand at a deeper level and where are the trends happening. And so we recently wrote one on property technology, largely spurred on by the connection with Jeff and the opportunity to bring this topic to all of you through this platform. And one of the things is absolutely clear from whichever direction you would come at a topic around PropTech. If it's because you're a building owner and you're wanting to help improve your building's performance and you're working on your ESG metrics, or you're an investor and you're looking at companies that are growing and solving new problems, or if you're just really trying to get things done in a new way and you're wanting to create operational efficiencies or help with the occupant experience, it really doesn't matter what brings you into this conversation. PropTech is for you, and there's a solution here. So Jeff, let's start off. Why don't you give us a little background about you and Logical Buildings and walk us through the solution and the application that you've built, and then we'll start our conversation about how all of this supports the industry and delivering better results.
Sure. Thanks, Laura, and thanks for having me on. Yeah, my background, I started in really on Wall Street, commodity risk management for utilities for a big investment bank way back when, and then transitioned to a utility, the Southern Company, to help them build out their unregulated business of assets in power and gas generation and storage. And at that time, the electric markets on a wholesale grid became more transparent, the whole settlement system, the ISOs, and that created a lot of opportunity for retail energy. And I was able to have the opportunity to co-found a retail energy company that went public about 10 years ago called Genie Energy. So I was able to really learn the full value chain of energy from production to delivery behind the meter, and be within also a technology company at the time that Genie Energy became hatched out of. And what I learned from that is that there's a complete lack of transparency in the utility world between data that's being used, getting that data, making that data actionable. People get their utility bill 15, 30 days after the fact. There's nothing to do about it. What the cost impact, why am I paying this much money? So decided to create a company with an owner developer who really understand how buildings are built to solve that equation of creating transparency, making that data actionable, and helping people use less energy, less carbon, and create value. And that's before there was climate tech as a moniker, and which more and more businesses went into this arena to create more transparency. Technology became much more facilitated that transition. People like to call the energy transition to digitize and electrify. So we created this platform, about 40 people now. We're in over 15,000 buildings nationally. We help buildings become grid interactive platforms, the cloud platform, mobile applications that building operators, managers can use to manage their loads, and also manage other healthy building metrics like indoor air quality, monitoring water, leak detection, things of that nature. The past couple of years, a big focus on ESG. Our platform is a tool for owner developers to manage and achieve their ESG targets in scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. And we do this in a way that there's an ROI, there's a monetization, because the grid itself use less energy. Obviously, you're saving money, but there's also grid services that the grid will pay a building for reducing their load, and we facilitate and make that happen as well. We actually are members of the grid. We're a FERC power marketer as well, so it puts us in a position to be able to be an intermediary for buildings to be able to reap the benefits of the services they offer back to the grid.
It's awesome. I really appreciate that background, and I am going to slide one of my little nuggets in here. So when we first met, we talked about a couple of people here in Cleveland who work in this space that you are familiar with. And I, revealed to you that at one point in time, I had a software company that did not get off the ground, that was coming at this very type of, well, it got off the ground, I should say, but it did not survive. But it got on that coming at this very specific topic, but 100% from the user perspective. And I think that's what's really neat, and probably what's caused you to be super successful is the fact that you have that deep understanding in the industry from the utility perspective, from the grid, and are able to pull those levers to get to the business case really of all sides of the equation much quicker. So why don't you talk to us about, who your clients are, what you're doing, where you're working, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And they tend, and the user experience is what it's all about. And our clients fall into a variety of buckets. Some are owner, like REITs, real estate investment trusts, publicly traded owner developers like the Avalon Bays, UDRs of the world, equity residentials, they're an owner, they're a manager, they're still building buildings, and they're focused on multifamily and mixed use. We also have big property management companies that like Bozzuto or Greystar that they step in and manage assets that might be owned by an asset management company like Prudential or Invesco, who are also clients of ours, who they're the equity owners, but they're not the day-to-day property managers. So that becomes a type of interface that we have with just pure property management companies. And then we have, companies that are just regional owner operator, but they have big portfolios that are private, that are in, amongst the clients, because they all have similar common denominator requirements. And that is, they want to know, what they're using, when they're using it, and why they're paying what they're paying for it. And what are recommendations of how they could use less, and also what are recommendations how they could get benefits from the grid, because they realize now that they are a resource to the grid that's playing an important role. And in addition, there's a lot of benefits obviously out there, whether it's from the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, or whether it's from local utility programs, really valuable stuff. And they're all interested in that. On the very bottom, we also have select partners that we act as their, special ops team for smart building solutions. So for like Comcast, we're the tip of the spear for Comcast for smart building solutions. The GSA, we were awarded through an RFP to make some of the federal buildings smart with our platform. It's really easy to use, easy to deploy. And then some big energy companies as well see us as that tip of the spear for smart building solutions. We have integrations with an OEM like Samsung for smart appliances. Smart appliances are a really huge area. And others as well besides Samsung, and then there's the world of the community choice aggregations that you have in California, others in New York, Sustainable Westchester as an example, where you have 150,000 members who are all focused on sustainability. They're all focused on renewables. They're all focused on how do I combat climate change? What are available technologies to help me do that? And we cater those needs.
Right. So before we get into sort of more about the platform and how it works, one of the questions that I'm just curious about is if you could give just a little bit of insight as to what I'll call the maturity of the utility industry / the grids acceptance of this change, and how that influences the ability for a platform like yours to be adopted.
Sure, great question. And the energy industry obviously is very, very regulated, but it's gone through the past 23 years a lot of changes of creating transparency, reliable rules of the road throughout the U.S. The big story going on right now is the AMI meter, the automated meter infrastructure that every utility has a plan in place. Some have finished their plans, like in New York, California, Texas. The Exelon companies they stepped in doing that about 15, 16 years ago. Now they're revamping their AMI meters with 2.0. And these meters, what they do is they provide time of use down to, the minutes. It could be 15-minute data. And that's really valuable because that provides direction and prescriptive guidance of what to do when in a particular building based on a time of day when energy is being utilized in more quantities or less quantities, that are different types of power plants are being dispatched that are fossil fuel or renewable. And balancing all that information requires the transparency of that data. So, and then for end users to participate, they need to have that type of meter. So that's, where we file that AMI meter in terms of our growth and evolution as a company. So you'll find us in many of our buildings or metropolitan areas in the Northeast, in California, Texas, but we're also in the Mid-Atlantic, as those states are they're putting the meters out as we speak. There are solutions in the meantime to get that interval data if the AMI meter is not there yet. But it all comes down to having that data access and being able to have a prescriptive guidance based off that data.
So I'm seeing on this screen that we're looking at the words grid rewards. And so that just immediately goes to the whole idea that we all like it if it's a button, a badge, or even some cash in our pockets, right?
Yeah, grid
So
is an amazing development. So shout out, kudos to Con Ed. They when they put in their automated meter infrastructure, they literally did transitioned uh, almost 6 million meters, 4 million electric, about 2 million gas, and made that data accessible through a common protocol and standard called Green Button Connect, and enable third-party mobile developers like Logical Building. So we really are a software development company to make that information user-friendly to end users. So instead of calling it demand response or something like grid rewards, like, hey, do something on the grid, get rewarded. Demand response payments are the rewards, but they also get on every day, like the webinar is Every Day is Earth Day. With grid rewards, every day is Earth Day as well. What do I mean by that is that users could see their data and see the carbon content of their data, the cost of what they're doing. It's almost like, you have a bank app, you see, purchases being made, that affects your behavior. When you start seeing that information in real time, people save a little more. Well, same thing with, knowing their energy information in real time, and knowing its carbon content and when there's a good time or bad time to use energy. That also affects people's behaviors and also makes them think about, hey, what like user-friendly technologies like a smart thermostat I should like go out and buy, and there's incentives for that as well. That makes me able to manage my energy anytime, anywhere, wherever I might be, and make a significant impact. So, grid rewards is a fabulous way to create transparency and have prescriptive guidance all at the same time.
Awesome. So talk to us about, what's working here, how all of the systems tie in and what's going on.
Yeah. So, a multifamily building where we started, that's where we cut our teeth as a company. The reason why we focus on multifamily is that's really where all the energy and carbon is in any metropolitan, city anywhere. That's where people live, and these days people even work. So there's a lot of energy being used in this space. And what's also interesting is that it's a microcosm of a city. You have common areas that like the property management company has to, manage and oversee, but you also have the private resident space and tenant space on the street level. You have small commercial companies, you have a coffee shop, you have a laundromat, a grocery store. They're all tenants of the same owner. And what's happened is in certain locales, that owner is now responsible for the carbon content of that building, scope 3 emissions, PA. So it doesn't matter, hey, it's not their meter. And there used to be this, what they call the split incentive, that I don't want to invest in more energy efficient equipment for my tenant because I don't reap the benefit. Well, now they do reap a benefit from two angles. One, well, there might be a financial penalty if they don't make these types of improvements, or they'll get a letter grade that's somewhat shameful for them to have because it's a lower letter. It means that you're not as efficient and you have to publicly announce that. They don't like that. And then thirdly, there's ESG requirements, and they're part of a fund or an index on the S&P if they're part of a big company and they want to be invested in, and they have to show what they're doing to decarbonize every footprint within their building. So in the multifamily, it forces an owner to think about different types of technologies that can power the building and make it more renewable, like solar, that you could save the energy, like on a battery. Two things that actually come with investment tax credits that are now much more understandable because of the Inflation Reduction Act, and therefore investments starting to pour in on those two fronts. EV charging also has investment tax credits and also local utility incentives. And more people are putting in EV chargers. We get like every day a request for EV chargers. Why? Because people are moving into buildings, and even if they don't have an EV vehicle of their own, they have friends that do, and they're coming to visit them, or their parents are coming to visit them, and they want to know there's a place to park, or they're it's a 2-year lease, and well, maybe next year they're going to get one, and they don't want to be living in a space that they can't bring their car there. So there's a mad dash going on right now amongst multifamily buildings nationally. Some of them have goals to have 15 or 30% of their space be able to support EV charging, and we help them turnkey that and manage the demand that comes of electricity that comes along with that as well. But as you see in the Energy Inflation Reduction Act, there's a lot of programs for different types of space being utilized in a multifamily building.
I'm going to go to the next slide, and I think you've got some more to say, sort of how it all works and it all ties together.
Yeah, the previous slide was more the big picture of an apartment building or a student housing building, any type of mixed-use multi-dwelling space. But for an average day consumer, whether you live in a studio apartment, co-op, condo, single-family home, we have the starter kit. What's the essentials? So the essentials is having that data, getting that data from the utility. Many utilities have either their own way to get you that data, or they have Green Button Connect, where they allow third parties like Electrical Buildings to deliver that in a very user-friendly way. Having a mobile application to see what that is, that's essential to be really impactful. If you don't have that, what if you don't have that? Well, what we recommend is in the starter kit is have a smart thermostat, because at least with a smart thermostat, you'll have your app from the smart thermostat. You'll be able to control your energy and be more thoughtful about it. There might be some learning, engineering within the smart thermostat itself, that it knows when you're there, you're not there, and it's using less. And that's going to definitely have an impact. And there's other smart appliances, devices, smart plugs that are available, really low cost, really easy to integrate. They talk to your home, hub, whatever one uses, whether it's an Alexa or something else, and just makes that whole experience very user-friendly. And now the smart appliances, the refrigerator, the dishwasher, the dryer, even the electric oven. Now there's electric heat pumps that are incentivized with cash incentives from the IRA and from local utilities, that all now talk to each other and even can get a signal from the grid in those states that allow you to participate in grid services and actually earn money on your appliance. I mean, how about that? I mean, that's like, and Grid Rewards is something that does that with Samsung. Through your Samsung device, you could now earn dough for using less, or having your refrigerator cycle less. Very painless type of implementation. The Power Pack is another initiative that any home anywhere in the US can do, and that is, there like we mentioned, there's these incentives for EV charging, for heat pumps, for batteries, for solar or community solar. If solar physically can't work on your roof, there's usually a community solar program that you're able to, through the utility or through a third party, if they have that type of choice, be able to designate the electric you're getting coming from a solar farm. So these three things, they're applicable to 2 and 3 anywhere. One really is, if you're in those states that have the AMI meters, it's soon coming to you. Be patient, it'll be there soon.
Right. Okay, so I have a couple of how does this work questions. So let's say I have a smart appliance in my house and I'm able to be on your system. I sign up for the program, and then does it tell my dishwasher, you know what, we need you to wait until 2 a.m. to come on. So even if I told it to start at 7 o'clock or whatever time I'm at a peaking event, it just delays me? Is that is it a signal from the system to my appliance to do different?
Yeah, great question. So everything comes with discretion. First of all, there's no big brother, coming in and controlling anyone's appliances. A person, for example, so it's like in our integration with Samsung, if you have a Samsung smart refrigerator, washer, dryer, so on your Samsung app, you could put that in a DR mode, meaning that when Logical Building sends a signal to Samsung, which we do, when there's a Grid Rewards event, that we're making a recommendation that appliances use less load for a couple of hours. Well, if your app is in DR mode, which you chose to do, then your refrigerator will now cycle less. It's really that simple. You could also get an alert from us, and then just choose what you want to do on your own. If you have other types of smart gadgets in your home, controlling a plug or a light or whatever it might be, to a pool pump, a electric water heater, these all exist, and being able to do that through, say, your Alexa device, one can just tap away and just lower that load on their own. All that is discretionary.
Awesome. Okay, so we're almost to the Q&A time. And so I'm going to slide us over there in a second. As I do that, I have one last question before we see if there's anybody else that has a question for us. And so my question is this. Again, of course, because I'm obsessed with the end user perspective on all of this, have you had any sort of surprises about what type of people or whatever is engaging with this kind of platform over another? Like any surprises from it? Let me just, maybe not so specific, any surprises from a user engagement perspective?
Well, we have, our surprises come in is that there are people, since we're on, it's a free download in the App Store and Google Play, but we're really creating awareness through our multifamily relationships. Just people who have downloaded the app and use it without us even marketing to them and giving us shout outs of how impactful it's been for them to see this information for the first time and realize that was available, and how it's actually lowered their bill, because now that they see what they're using, they're just that much more focused on it, and understanding time of use, that like certain hours are more expensive than other hours, or certain hours have more carbon than other hours. So getting that type of feedback was really interesting. And then like for certain homes, oh, I turned my pool pump down, or I didn't charge my EV at that time. Wow, like they're really, reacting to the information in ways that only they can, because they live in that space and they know their devices, and they're starting to understand the impact of load on their house by turning these things on and off.
Awesome. Okay, Michael, you're up. Do we have any questions?
Yes, so we did get a couple in here. I wanted to pick up on a conversation that Jeff was kind of touching on a bit earlier as it relates to EVs. It's something that we are hearing a ton about. And the question is, what should developers, I'm an architect, I'm an engineer, I'm part of a project team. What should I be assessing as I'm incorporating or thinking about incorporating EV infrastructure into my multifamily, mixed use, or commercial project?
Great. Excellent question. And we get that literally like every day.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you want to be able to, wherever you're putting those EV chargers, you want to be able to have a separate meter on those chargers. You don't want that to be on the house load, the PLP meter of that multifamily building. This way you can segregate that data. Because eventually when the hardware goes in, you're going to want to have software that's able to set rates for use of that charging station. No one's giving away the electricity for free anymore. Those days are over. And so you want to be able to pick a software company that has that ability to set rates, that has the ability to manage the demand of that charging station as well. So when there's peak demand events, you're able to derate those stations, and so also to mitigate costs to the ownership. And the other piece of it is how many charging stations are going to be. If you have like say 10 or 20, then you start thinking about, well, you probably need to have solar canopy. You want to have a renewable resource, and you want to have a battery pack, because to storage that and give yourself optionality of taking, nice free solar energy, putting it on your battery, utilizing that when peak demand is high to charge your vehicles. So we're doing that for a number of companies at the MEP level, construction design, providing that guidance of making sure it's on a separate meter, making sure that there's hardware that has open protocols, could work with all sorts of different types of software, and being able to think about the renewable aspect, taking advantage of the IRA program, the local utility incentives for putting in solar and putting in battery in conjunction with the EV charging stations.
Great, thank you. I had one other that came in, and I'm going to tie it together with another question that I had as well. But one of the consistent themes as it relates to sustainable development is thinking about how we can redevelop, retrofit either existing residential spaces or perhaps retrofit from one space to another. So question came in, what should I be thinking about if I'm specifically focusing on retrofitting, rehabbing existing buildings, and how can I incorporate this this strategy into that project?
Excellent question as well. And that's like the world of virtual power plants that we're really focused on. you really need to first understand the MEP of the building. What's the mechanical, electrical, plumbing configuration of the building? Is it hot water heating? Like how is it pumped around? The thermostatic controls, is there a C wire in the building? So when you think about putting in smart thermostats, is there existing infrastructure to support a smart thermostat? When you think about smart thermostat, is there Wi-Fi in the building? If there is Wi-Fi, well, there's Wi-Fi thermostats. Well, if there's no Wi-Fi in the building, and well, that means you'll have to put in Wi-Fi infrastructure. Are there other solutions? The answer is yes. There's non-Wi-Fi mesh solutions where these thermostats create a mesh network. They talk to each other and are able to, in a low-cost way, provide same benefits of control for that building. So there's definitely, you have to look at the wiring, and you have to answer those questions of wireless connectivity, what's being offered in the building, what are the HVAC equipment that's there, are they closed systems, are they open systems, what does it take in the cost to make them open systems? Most systems that seemingly look closed, meaning that they can't interact with smarter controls, actually can. And but it does come at a cost, and that's where you start doing that ROI on your ESG.
Yeah, and it's what we started talking about with the grid shifting and everything. If the grid and the utilities aren't where they need to be, it's going to make the ROI conversation more challenging, right? If they're not in an area where they're running DR programs, or they haven't come up with the pricing structures to help support that. So it makes a lot of sense. But I mean, people making investments today in buildings, they may not have that today, but they're going to in 5 to 10 years. It's coming, so might as well be ready for it, right?
Absolutely. And the other thing is, look, the cost of energy is really expensive, and we've all seen that. So that's been a big driver of the ROI, just being able to use less or shade the peak demand that a multifamily building or commercial building has a peak demand charge, it has a KW charge, and that's only getting more and more expensive. Those charges are now more than 50% of the bill. It's like even more than the output of the energy. So that's common to all areas of the United States, and that's going to always be the bulk of the payback. The DR is icing on the cake, so to speak. So there's always going to be a value nonetheless.
Michael.
Okay. I think we are running up against time, unless there are any other questions or any other topics that you wanted to add in, Laura.
We're good. Thank you, Jeff, for doing this.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Michael. Thanks everybody for attending. Appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks to everybody for attending. Please feel free to reach out directly to our speakers with any additional questions. The contact information provided. Thanks again for joining today's webinar. Stay tuned for more webinars and educational opportunities as we move through the rest of the year. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hey, bye-bye.
Bye.